Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open something called the Take Profit Futures Playbook. Why? Because we want to pull out the key secrets to passing those super tough, notoriously difficult funded trader evaluations. We're going to really dig into why so many traders fail, and more importantly, what the data says you can actually do about it.
So let's just get right to it. Have you ever felt like these futures trading tests are just rigged? Like there's some kind of carnival game designed for you to lose? Well, you're not alone. A lot of traders get super frustrated and feel that way. But what this playbook argues is that, it's not actually about rigged rules. It's about one core skill that these firms are really testing for: how well you manage risk.
And look, this isn't just some academic theory, okay? This insight comes straight from a guy who's actually been in the trenches, James Sixsmith. He's the CEO of Take Profit Trader. He built this entire playbook using millions of data points from thousands and thousands of real traders. So it's not just his opinion. He knows what it feels like to struggle because he's seen the data and he's lived it.
Okay, so here's the good news in all of this. The data actually shows that there are really only two main reasons why most traders fail these evaluations. And the best part? They're connected. They're almost always correlated. So if you can just fix one of them, the other one pretty much fixes itself. It's like a 2-for-1 deal.
All right, fault number one. This is it. The single biggest, most common mistake is simply trading too large. That's it. Traders are using a position size that's just way too big for the account's risk rules, and it basically puts their risk of ruin through the roof before they even have a chance to see if their trade idea was right.
So, to really get why this is so critical, we have to talk about something called point risk. Now, don't worry, this isn't some crazy complex indicator. It's actually just the raw math of how much breathing room your trade has before you're out. Let's break it down using a standard $50,000 account as an example.
So on a typical 50K account, your daily loss limit is usually somewhere around $1,100. That's it. That is your entire risk budget for the whole day. You hit that number in a loss, and bam, you're done. Game over for the day.
Okay, so let's do some quick math. If you're trading just one standard E-mini S&P 500 contract, where every single point the market moves is worth $50, the math is pretty simple. You take that $1,100 limit, divide it by $50 a point, and what do you get? 22 points. That is your total room for error for the entire day. Just 22 points.
But here's where it gets really interesting. How does that 22 points stack up against reality? Well, the market, on an average day, moves about 78 points. So think about that. Your entire safety net, your 22 points of risk, is less than a third of the market's normal daily movement. That is not a lot of wiggle room.
Oh, but wait, it gets worse, way worse. What if you use the maximum size they allow you? In this case, it's 6 contracts. Well, your point risk just collapses down to a tiny 3.6 points. 3.6. In a market that moves 78 points a day, you're statistically totally cornered. You're forced to use these hair trigger stops and go for tiny little profits, which, you guessed it, leads us right into the second big mistake.
And look, if you need proof, here's the hard data right from the playbook. This is literally a snapshot from the firm's risk software. The accounts with the biggest losses for the day, they are consistently blowing right past their limits. And what's the one thing they all have in common? They were all using a huge percentage of their maximum allowed size. The data doesn't lie.
And that insane pressure cooker environment we just talked about, that's what forces traders right into the second major fault: scalping. See, when your point risk is microscopic because you're trading way too big, you can't let a trade breathe. You have no choice but to try and scalp for these tiny little wins, which just makes you a victim of all the random, unpredictable noise in the market.
The legendary author Jack Schwager said it best. He points out that when you're glued to every single tick on the chart, it leads to two bad things: overtrading and getting shaken out of what could have been perfectly good positions. And the playbook's data? It shows this is exactly what happens when trading too big forces you to watch every little move.
Okay, so let's just recap. We've diagnosed the problem, right? You trade too big, which shrinks your room for error, which then forces you to scalp, and that exposes you to all the random market noise that just knocks you out of the game. So enough about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. Let's see how we can build a much more sustainable approach.
And the playbook's prescription is, well, it's actually beautifully simple. It all boils down to just 3 core rules. And these rules directly fight back against those 2 big mistakes we just talked about, giving you back the control that trading too big steals from you.
Okay, so of the 3 rules, this one is maybe the most important, the 25% size rule. Never, ever use more than 25% of your maximum allowed size. This table shows you exactly what that looks like in the real world. So for a 50K account where they let you trade 6 contracts, you should only be trading 1. For a 150K account where they allow 15 contracts, you should be trading a max of 3. This is the game changer right here.
Now, to really see the power of this, let's walk through a real-world example straight from the playbook. Think of it as a tale of 2 traders. They take the exact same trade at the exact same time, but there's just one crucial difference between them.
So you've got Trader A, who goes big. He uses 10 contracts on his 15K account. Then you've got Trader B, who follows that 25% rule and only uses 3 contracts. Now the market takes a dip against them. What happens? Trader A is instantly liquidated. Account blown, gone. But Trader B? With that smaller size, he survives the dip and actually rides the trade all the way back to being profitable. I mean, come on. Same entry, same idea, completely different worlds.
So let's just rewind the tape for a second for that poor trader who failed. With those 10 contracts, the drawdown slammed him with a loss of almost $5,000, way past his limit. But if he'd only used 3 contracts, that exact same market move would have only been a drawdown of less than $1,000. He would have had all the breathing room in the world to hold the position, not panic, and ultimately see the trade work out in his favor.
You know, after an experience like that, blowing up an account, most traders go on this epic quest. They spend months searching for a new strategy, a new indicator, the holy grail of trading. But the playbook argues that this is a complete and total waste of time. They're looking in completely the wrong place.
I'm sure you've heard this quote before, but man, it applies so perfectly here. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? If you keep blowing accounts because you're trading too big, just hitting the reset button and doing the exact same thing again isn't going to change anything. The problem isn't your strategy, it's your size.
And that right there, that is the ultimate takeaway. The secret to success in these evaluations isn't about finding some magic indicator on your chart. The real holy grail, the key that unlocks literally everything else, is just the discipline of using the correct position size. That's what gives you the chance to even use your strategy in the first place.
So the big question this playbook really leaves us with is this one. Are you managing your risk, or is your risk managing you? Because when you finally fix your sizing, you give yourself a real fighting chance to survive in the market. And as the playbook makes crystal clear, you can't win the game if you're not even allowed to play.